Hey, it's the Unapologetic Gent back again, ready to pick up on some topics that happened over the weekend. Had some Champions League games as well today, but really I wanted to get in today is Mohammed Salah scored his 100th Premier League goal. And I believe that puts him he's one of 30 players now that have scored 100 goals in the Premier League. I think he's only like one of five that wasn't an out and out kind of number 9 striker. He does play the inside forward position, but I mean, technically speaking, he's a winger. So I wanted to discuss that and kind of is he top 5 Premier League winger of all time? In my opinion, I'd say probably he's not. He's not necessarily my type of player, but from a goal scoring perspective, since he's been at Liverpool, he's been inevitable. Again, I'm an eye test guy, and a lot of the things he does on the pitch, like from an eye test standpoint, like I don't doesn't pass an eye test for me. But in terms of being clinical in front of goal, scoring goals, and when your team needs something and they're not in great form, you need a goal to win a game, Salah's your man. So you do have to give him the respect from that standpoint, but just wanted to discuss where do we think he ranks. And some of the people that aren't in the 100 club are people like Ruud van Nistelrooy, who had 95 goals, CR7, who I believe is the best winger the Premier League's ever seen. I think he's on like 87 or 88. He'll definitely be in the 100 club. From a stats perspective, it's impressive. I don't think any out-and-out winger has ever gotten no out-and-out wingers have gotten to 100 goals. And I think the only guys that weren't strikers or, forward number 9 players to get in the 100 Premier League club, I think is Paul Scholes, Steven Gerrard, Matt Letizia, Frank Lampard, I believe. And I believe everyone else is a number 9. And then in terms of like goals per game ratio, I believe only Harry Kane, Sergio Aguero, Thierry Henry, and maybe Alan Shearer have scored more goals per game. Either goals per game or goals per minute. If someone, later in the comments you can correct me, but either way, it's an incredible stat. I'm not a stat guy, but to be able to score that many goals per game and not be an out-and-out number 9 is definitely impressive. In terms of top 5 wingers to ever play in the Premier League, for me, it's simple. Cristiano Ronaldo, CR7 would be number 1. I think he set the standard. I believe he's the best player that's ever played in the Premier League. Some people would argue and say Thierry Henry. But I would say just from a career standpoint, I don't think Thierry Henry is in the greatest player ever discussion, and Ronaldo is. So that's probably why I would say his best years were probably at Real Madrid. But in terms of raw, just pure talent, I think Ronaldo is the best player that the Premier League's ever seen. Could say Henry was the best, in terms of how they performed in the Premier League throughout the years that he was there. So I go CR7 as my number 1, for sure. And then for my number 2, again, I'm an eye test guy, Eden Hazard for me. Dragged Chelsea to champions multiple times. Was incredible on the ball. He's more of a number 10, but played on the left and was absolutely incredible, devastating, destroyed people. If he was at, just from a talent perspective, one of the best players the Premier League has ever seen. He's definitely someone I would put ahead of Mo Salah. And Ryan Giggs, I forgot, is also someone who was an out-and-out striker that is in the 100 Premier League goals club, and we'll get to him in a second. And then for me, my number 3 winger would be Gareth Bale. Shout out to Tottenham. They were top of the league. Just got crushed by Crystal Palace this past weekend, but Gareth Bale, I don't think people remember the couple of years that he had at Tottenham was absolutely special. And just from an impact player standpoint, goals, assists, the way he went past people was just special. To me, still, overall, was a better player than Mohammed Salah could ever dream of being. So Gareth Bale would be my third. And then for me, it's not even a statistical thing. I just think overall, maybe I'm not a longevity guy, so I would put Mohammed Salah as my fourth best winger to ever play in the Premier League. And my fifth would be Ryan Giggs. And I know people say, well, he has the most appearances, the most trophies, all this. He played in great teams. But just from a raw impact standpoint, I think Mohammed Salah was just more impactful in the time that he's been at Liverpool than Giggs has been over the years, and he's just inevitable. Giggs scored 100 and something goals, but also played 19, 20 years at Manchester United. So the impact levels were different. Not to take anything away from Ryan Giggs, he's a great player. Off the field, terrible human being, but those would be my top five. So I'd have Ronaldo at 1, Eden Hazard at 2, Gareth Bale at 3, Mohammed Salah at 4, and Ryan Giggs at 5. And you guys let me know what you think. If you have anyone else, there were some other wingers that I thought potentially could think of, but like a Robert Perez, someone like that. Damien Duff had a decent career. But to me, those 5, there really shouldn't be an argument. Maybe some people could debate the order. Some people would probably have Ryan Giggs higher. But for me, those other guys were just more impactful players. And some of them not always in. Ryan Giggs was in a lot of good teams over his, 19, 20-year career at Manchester United. So I do want to give a shout out to Mo Salah because that's an incredible achievement, and in the time that he's, got there, to be in the 100 goals club is special. I think he's the second African player as well. I think Drogba is the only other African player in the 100 goals club. So that's an amazing feat too for the motherland continent. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Obviously, the game's changed because when Ronaldo first came into the Premier League, it was more of the majority of Ryan Giggs' career, it was a 4-4-2 kind of setup. So being a winger, you didn't really score as many goals as opposed to now, everyone kind of plays that 4-3-3 scheme where the wingers are really inside, inverted forwards playing, cutting in on their strong foot, kind of like Iron Robin did his whole career. So from that standpoint, I kind of get it. That's one of the reasons why Ronaldo's numbers weren't as astounding, maybe, and why Ryan Giggs didn't score as many goals per game as well. So I do definitely take that into account. But, I believe all those other guys that I named have won the Player of the Year. I don't know if Salah's ever won the Player of the Year, but he scored 32 because I believe Cristiano Ronaldo had the record for most goals in a season with 31, and Mo Salah broke that with 32. So, I heard someone say once, in these last couple of years, if you score more goals than Mo Salah in a season, you'll probably win the Golden Boot, which has rang true so far. So he's definitely special, clinical, impactful talent, I believe. I just don't believe he was nowhere near the level of Cristiano Ronaldo, not even in the same stratosphere. And then Eden Hazard, to me, from a eye test standpoint, was on another level to Mo Salah as well. And then also Gareth Bale as well gave you numbers, and I believe he won 1 or 2 PFA Player of the Years. I know Eden Hazard did. Of course, Ronaldo did, won a Ballon d'Or at Manchester United, and I believe Ryan Giggs has also won a Player of the Year. So, And again, it's not always about awards, but just from an eye test standpoint, I think those three guys are ahead of Mo Salah. And obviously, like, that's a great company to be in. I do think he is a better player than Ryan Giggs was. And that's saying a lot because Ryan Giggs was special. He was a special player. So let me know you guys' thoughts. But that's my top 5 wingers in Premier League history. And just wanted to give a special shout out to Mo Salah for scoring those goals because it's an incredible achievement. Most people won't score 100 goals in the Premier League. And I know soon there's going to be an argument to come up with, Raheem Sterling. I think he's not too far away from 100 goals. He'll score 100 goals. I'm sure Marcus Rashford, if he stays healthy, he'll score 100 goals. So it'll be interesting to see. And to me, I don't think Raheem Sterling's in that conversation. I believe more so the system that he plays in at Manchester City helps him in the same way Salah does, but I think Salah's just way more clinical but both of them on the eye, like dribbling and close control it's not my thing. They're more erratic, whereas like an Eden Hazard just glide elegantly through the ball, through a game, just people clipping at his heels, following him, dragging him back. So, I think, some people will put, numbers people will put Raheem Sterling in that bracket when it's all said and done. But again, I'm not a numbers person. I just think that Mo Salah he gives me that inevitable feeling. Like when Liverpool's playing, you just know he's going to score. And that's a special talent in itself. So I take nothing away from him. I appreciate the time. It's the Unapologetic Gent. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe my content. Thank you very much for watching the videos, and I appreciate your support.